he's going to run. Luther Campbell, widely known around the world as Uncle Luke, made it official this morning.
He's running for Congress, hoping to unseat South Florida Democrat Sheila McCormick.
A pivotal figure in hip-hop as a rapper and producer, Luther Uncle Luke Campbell brought Two Live Crew to fame in the 80s. He then led the group through landmark legal battles in the 90s over the obscene nature of the group's lyrics, winning free speech protections for their music. Campbell gave up his job as head football coach at Miami Edison Senior High School after 8 seasons to run for office.
Drug dealer, pornographer, hip-hop artist arrested for obscenity, First Amendment crusader, Supreme Court victor, college football NIL pioneer. You remember the Hurricanes pay-for-play bounty scandal, don't you?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And now candidate for United States Congress in whose district?
Roy.
Yeah.
That's hang on, I got that.
You're goddamn right, meatball.
Yeah, that's my vote.
So up there in Roy, this is a busy primary, Roy.
Yeah.
So we all have to remember where Luke is running. Luke is running in District 20. And District 20, as a refresher for those of you who have been watching the show for a while, is the district of Sheila McCormick, who's run into some trouble.
Nearly 3 months after Sheila McCormick was indicted for allegedly stealing $5 million in FEMA funds, a new lawyer representing her officially entering a plea of not guilty on her behalf. Prosecutors say a healthcare company the Congresswoman ran with her brother was mistakenly overpaid for a COVID-19 vaccination staffing contract. Rather than paying it back, she's accused of funneling some of the money into her 2021 congressional campaign and using other funds to buy a 3-carat fancy vivid yellow diamond ring.
I am innocent. In no way did I steal any kind of funds.
If convicted, the Congresswoman could face decades in prison and millions in fines.
Uncle Luke, Magatov, you're not the only candidate in this race with a rap sheet. So talk to me now. Why are you've teased this before. You've been on the show before teasing this. I feel like after the last election, the presidential election, in 2024. Why now? Why are you doing this?
I mean, it's the perfect time, Billy. Thank you guys for having me on the show. And then the mere fact that this is Roy District, I think Roy needs great representation, him and the people of District 20. It goes from Belle Glades, it goes to Pahokee, it goes to River Beach, Lauderhill Lakes, Tamarack, all these different areas. And all these areas got issues. You know what I'm saying? My son plays baseball in Tamarack. My good friend Ricky Jackson is in Belle Glades, Pahokee, South Bay area. When you go through that area, it's less than 35 minutes away from us, and it looks, and it needs help. Let's just say it needs help. When you look at the entire district, and then at the same time, you have a congresswoman that has not been here, pretty much lives in D.C. with her family and is underserving the people of this community. And I think this is the right time. And you need a grown man to go up to Washington and fight for the people and bring resources back to this community. And I think I'm the best person in this race that can do that.
First and foremost, you do have a Democratic primary that you have to compete in. I think it's a pretty crowded field from what I recall. We've had one of those candidates, Elijah Manley, on this show as a guest in the past because he was being sued for a while. I don't think he's still being sued by Sheila McCormick for calling her a criminal, which incidentally, come on now. So Uncle Luke's just sort of seems to have no comment, but
I'm trying to stay away from the smut. I'm trying to stay away from negative campaign. It's like football. It's a contact sport. As soon as they hit me, I'm gonna hit back.
Well, I guess my point here is that this is a very crowded field. Elijah Manley, I think, if you believe his polling, is beating her statistically, if not tied with her statistically, I should say. So the more Democrats, the more challengers McCormick has in the primary, theoretically, the better it does for her. It kind of cannibalizes the opposition, and maybe she sails through. What is your kind of handicapping of this race, and how do you kind of distinguish yourself and eke out a victory here in the primary?
Well, I look at it like this. I'm not a regular candidate. You know, I'm not.
You
I'm
don't
different
say.
than. I'm different. I am different than any of these people that is in this race. You got career politicians. You got people who've consistently ran and got their ass beat on a consistent basis. You got doctors. You got people in this race that has not did anything for no community under no circumstances. I mean, I think part of qualifying, you should have to have done some community service, over the years. You should have to have done, you should have to start youth programs. You should have been going to the city council meetings and advocating for different things within the community and bringing resources back to underprivileged, underserved people in these underserved communities. And you should have been, a person like myself that went to the Supreme Court, highest court in the land, and won. Like you say, I'm a pioneer of a lot of things. This is something that I've always wanted to do at some point in my life. And I think right now is the perfect time. Like I always say, if people were happy with their congresswoman, I would not be in this race. I mean, there's tons of races that's out there. I mean, most people wanted me to run for governor. I think that's a department that we need a good candidate in at the same time. But, when I look at this race and I look at this district, I can do the same thing that I did in this district, that I did in Miami Edison, that I did at Liberty City, that I did with helping kids get jobs, renovating a 28-acre park, renovating a school and bringing it back to life, having turf fields, doing partnerships with the different, sponsors and people that I'm affiliated with. I can do those things in District 20, and I don't see any other candidate. And you got TBS. I mean, TBS is going to happen. I mean, they've just, judge ruled, and they went back to the same judge, and the judge then said, I'm not going to overturn it. It's going to end up in the Supreme Court, that Donald Trump controls this district. Is 700,000 people, 300,000 of them are immigrants, and their status is up for grab. I mean, I don't want to scare nobody, but at the end of the day, that's what's on this ballot.
So
you getting deported.
When you
You
refer
getting
to
fucking deported. Yeah.
when you refer to TPS, you mean temporary protected status.
Yes.
I believe that your district 20 is probably the district in the country with the most, I think, Haitian immigrants specifically.
Yes. Yes.
And who are certainly among the groups on the chopping block when Donald
They're
Trump.
They're the target. Trump targeted them before. Trump targeted that group before he even got in the race. Trump targeted Haitian people when he was the president, when he called them a shithole of a country. So that they're the target. I mean, when they were running, him and J.D. Vance targeted them and said they were eating cats and all kind of shit like that. I mean, at the end of the day, so I mean, it's a serious issue. You don't need.
How do you plan on dealing with that, though? You had said that you have some experience with bringing home some bacon and that you're the adult in the race who can go to D.C. and have conversations with these people. How do you intend to do that?
Well, the same way I've been doing it for years. I mean, we know your good friend Mayor Suarez is a card-carrying Republican. I'm able to go work with him, when you can't work with him. And every other person. Just imagine, Billy, if anybody should know, every time, I mean, how difficult it is to work in the city of Miami. I've been groomed to be able to work within that gridlock of a dais. I mean, and it's full with Republicans, and I've never not got a no vote for anything that I was doing for the community. Same thing with the school board. I've never not gotten a no vote, whether it was me advocating for coaches higher pay and getting facilities built within the district. I've never gotten a no vote, and these are Republicans and Democrats. I mean, Marco Rubio, I consider Marco Rubio as a good friend of mine. There's never been a time where I've taken kids on college tours in the 20 years that I've been doing it that Marco Rubio didn't donate. You know what I'm saying? So these people, on the other side of the aisle, I've worked with on numerous occasions some of the most unscrupulous people, and for a fact, it is some very bad people. And if I could work with the bad people in Miami-Dade County, city of Miami, I think I could work with people in Washington. I mean, hey, look, I can go sit down, I'll sit down and have a conversation with anybody about bringing resources back to this district. And I think I'm able to do that.
Well, Luke, you said it. I mean, you can work with people across the aisle and everything, but what about MAGA? I mean, they seem to be fully entrenched with Trump, and I don't think he's going to be able to agree with anything that you're going to say.
Well, we can all just sit here and cry over spilled milk. I mean, when you look at Donald Trump, Trump is he's pardoning Kodak Black. He's giving Nicki Minaj a card, but all these people, Kodak Black and Lil Wayne and all them, they didn't have to sell their soul, to get a pardon. I think, I can have a conversation with Trump if I have to. You got to know the individual in which you work with. You just can't just get on TV and just go crazy and just talk about him bad all day. I mean, he has
That's what he's doing.
But he has enough shit on his plate that my job is to go and bring resources for people who live around the corner from him. I mean, he lives in Mar-a-Lago, and that is, the last time I checked, that is a part of Palm Beach County. And so he doesn't want to be living in a third world country where fires are burning around Mar-a-Lago and he can't get there. So that is a part of his community. And my job is to go and say, hey, look, man, these kids need tech schools because everybody is not going to college. I mean, we need affordable housing. We need these grocery prices in your neighborhood need to go down. And those people who working in the kitchen at Mar-a-Lago and who working on the grounds, those are the people that I'm protecting. And so I think if you have a real serious conversation with this dude, which I don't think he's going to get in the way of anything that I'm trying to bring to this district. I mean, shit, look, in Riviera Beach, they're balling the water. They're borderline having the same situation that they had in Michigan. That's been going on for God knows how long. Congresswoman, congressman, whoever it may be, I got to go in there and help those people with the resources to be able to, rebuild their water plant.
Uncle Luke, thank you for being here. Good luck to you. I just hope that Sheila buys you a ring, a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ring.
It's from the fraud money.
Which one? Which one? Because, I mean, there's some oil money, too.
Oh, God, I love this town.
A 28-year-old woman was out celebrating her birthday early Saturday. The vehicle she was in was passing through this area while police were trying to stop a guy with a gun. In the end, she and another man would end up dead.
28-year-old Evelyn Valdes killed in a police-involved shooting. The shooting was early Saturday morning as the busy Wynwood bars were closing around 3 a.m. in the area of Northwest First Place and 23rd Street.
Officers observed a male who was armed. Subsequently, several officers discharged their firearms.
Evelyn was not the intended target, just an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire.
Breaking news from Because Miami. We can report here for the first time ever that the bullet that killed 28-year-old social worker Evelyn Valdes while she was celebrating her 28th birthday in Wynwood last June was fired by a City of Miami police officer. It was originally reported that Evelyn was an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire of a police-involved shooting. She was definitely an innocent bystander, but the term crossfire insinuates that someone was returning fire. The truth is, based on the evidence we currently have, the only shots fired that night were by Miami police officers, striking 3 victims, 2 fatally. Evelyn died because she made the horrible mistake of celebrating her birthday in the city of Miami. This is a devastating case study of the complete and total failure of Miami's emergency response infrastructure, the most basic function of a municipal government, the crucial life-saving services that we want our taxpayer dollars invested in. But everything that you hope or expect to happen when an incident like this occurs did not happen here. So if you live in Miami or visit Miami, the staggering incompetence and negligence revealed by this avoidable tragedy, from the officers on the scene to the dispatchers to fire rescue and EMS, will chill you to the bone. Evelyn was on her way home at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning last June after spending Friday night out with friends. Last call on liquor in Wynwood is 3 a.m., so everybody kind of gets pushed out onto the street at that time. At around 3:06 a.m., Jose Valdes, Evelyn's brother, what happened?
Once the shots were fired and my cousins and everyone that was with my sister in the car realized that she had been struck with a round, immediately they saw the first police car on the road. They drove to it, jumped out the car with the car still moving, trying to flag down any police officers they could find.
So they were leaving for the night, is that right? They were just driving by?
So they actually left, and GPS had a detour. GPS sent them down a road that had construction in the moment, detoured them back around to the opposite side of the club, back in front to where the shooting happened. You know, had there been no construction that night, they would have been home with no problem. But GPS had a detour, ended up back in front of the club as everything transpired.
What do you understand was happening out on that street, though, before the shots were fired? What do you know about that?
From what I know, from statements that were given to me by individuals that were there at the scene. I was not at the scene, so from what I know, there was an altercation. There was an individual with a firearm, and the officers did what they did.
The altercation started apparently inside the club and escalated outside the club. By the time this altercation is escalating outside the club is when the car is doing that detour, coming back around the front of where everybody was coming out of, and there was traffic by this time, so they got stuck.
So they were kind of crawling or stopped in front of
there was cars. There was a line of cars, and they're just trying to get out of there.
This is Kristy Garcia, Evelyn's mother. This was on 23rd Street in Wynwood, outside of a nightclub that we're talking about is called Electric Lady or Electric 23. After Jose had told us that the car then proceeded to the nearest police officer, what happens from there? I mean, obviously they're looking for help. Did they realize Evelyn had been struck?
So they see a squad car with the lights on, parked on the side of the road. They drive up to it. There's no officer inside. Officer was already at the initial scene.
Yeah, most likely he was at the scene of where everything had happened.
So they're running around at this point. They're calling. One of them's calling 911. Another one's running to the next cop that they see driving to the first scene, trying to flag them down. All right. Within 2 minutes of the first 911 call, they had an officer at the scene. Officer's priority was not rendering aid to my sister. It was isolating my sister from the individuals that were with her, trying to render aid to her.
Why?
That's our question.
Because it was an active scene, apparently. So they were treated like if they were suspects instead of victims. They were all separated.
What do you have any understanding of what was Evelyn's condition at that time when that was happening?
At that moment, the girls told me that she was okay, that she was breathing and whatnot. What I know, I don't know. I just know by what I've seen and what I've heard. She was laid out. Social media had videos all over the place. There was a video of her in the back seat, basically laid, slumped with this gunshot wound, and nobody helping her. Nobody helping her. And when the cop does arrive, he's worried more about getting the girls to separate, keeping them away from her, leaving her alone in the car, and then putting up yellow tape on the streets. How do you not render aid to somebody who's shot in the back of the car?
Angelo Martin, you are an attorney representing the family. I understand you have not sued yet, right? There's no lawsuit yet, but you're obviously looking into this, investigating this, trying to understand better what happened. What I'm trying to understand is they said within 2 minutes of the 911 call, there was an officer on the scene. Where is fire rescue? Where is EMS? Where's the ambulance? I mean, Wynwood, if you have to experience a traumatic incident, Wynwood would strike me as one of the better places, if you will, in the world, because you are blocks away from a fire rescue station. You are a mile and change away from one of the preeminent...
Exactly half a mile from the station.
Right, which I think is like 18th or 19th Street. Right, and you are a mile and change away from one of the preeminent trauma centers in the world at Jackson Memorial Hospital, Ryder Trauma. So all of this would strike me as Evelyn could have been on her way to one of the best trauma centers in the world very, very quickly. What is happening? What is the TikTok here?
I mean, that's the burning question, right? We know that the 911 call went out, at least the initial 911 call went out from one of the vehicle occupants as early as 3:06 a.m. And we are aware of the fact that Evelyn didn't receive definitive care or wasn't received into the hospital, Ryder Trauma Center, until 3:40 a.m.
That's an extraordinary period of time.
It's 34 minutes. So it's 34 minutes is a long time to be sitting in the back of the vehicle suffering from a gunshot wound.
And we're Miami people. 3:05 a.m. on a Friday night, Saturday morning. How long does it take to get to Ryder Trauma? You could walk there faster.
Well, you have Station 2, which is, less than a half a block away. You have Ryder Trauma, which is about a 1.3 to 1.4 mile drive. And yeah, in terms of the distance, an able-bodied individual could have walked to the hospital quicker than she was transported by rescue.
And I understand this was a bit of a cluster. You had 3 people shot. You had what it turns out to be 2 or 3 Miami police officers who effectively turned 23rd Street into a shooting gallery while customers were pouring out onto the street after closing time at all the bars at 3 a.m. And you had apparently this armed man, Norman Lindo. Did I get the name right? Yeah, this armed man, Norman Lindo, who was also shot and killed by police officers. Effectively, I imagine the target of the officers when Evelyn was hit. But also the manager of Electric Lady, John Fortini, who filed a lawsuit last October, who claims that he was having a conversation with the 3rd police officer at the front door right there on 23rd Street. And that officer, I guess, in response, in a panic, hearing gunshots or hearing that someone had a gun, is taking, like Keystone Cop style, taking his gun out of the holster, and there is what they claim to be a negligent discharge that shoots this club manager in the hand. So this sounds like a total mess. What have you learned from the dispatch recordings and what was happening in the immediate aftermath and in the 40 friggin' minutes or so, or 30 plus minutes before Evelyn made it to the hospital?
Well, it became evident that dispatch was scrambling, right? There's a lot of confusion coming over the comms. They don't really know how many victims are involved. They don't know where these victims are located. And that could be a reason for the lack of care or the delay in which rescue actually made it to the scene where Evelyn was finally ultimately located, where that vehicle came to rest. So, it's very apparent, that there is a lot of confusion there. It's a convoluted case. Nobody knows, where people are, where the resources need to be dedicated. So, there's a lot of questions.
There are public records here, though. There's a dispatcher roster.
Sure.
What, if anything, does that reveal about how this was handled or mishandled?
Well, I can't say that it reveals anything definitively, but it certainly begs many questions. And were there staffing issues that night? This is a Friday night in Wynwood. This is a period of time in which you would expect the 911 dispatch department to be adequately resourced.
Yeah, Friday night, late night, crazy shit goes down.
Right. You have a shift, a B shift, and a C shift. The C shift begins around 10:45 at night, which would have been the shift in which all this entire incident transpired. Happened at 3 a.m. So Yeah, was there personnel issues? Were there staffing issues? Were there people out on vacation that were needed in house?
Well, the records seem to indicate that the C shift looked severely understaffed. You had multiple people out on vacation, Family Medical Leave Act. You have several people on OT who, by the time that this incident occurred, would have been working in excess of 12 hours at that point. You've got one person who's listed as sort of a CTO or a training officer, but also tactical. So this is a person who's ostensibly, I guess, there to handle, I guess, high stress or, I guess, major duty incidents like this, who was out on workman's comp leave. So it looked like there was like a skeleton crew on staff on a Friday night in Miami at dispatch. And there's also evidence that the City of Miami Police Department had been pretty proactive in recent years trying to hire at the dispatchers. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, there's several social media posts that we came across where, there's obviously a clear intention of trying to onboard some additional 911 dispatchers. Is this a habitual issue? Are there staffing issues? It certainly begs the question.
Kristy, what would you tell other mothers and other parents whose children or whose kids go out in Miami every day and every night? Should they feel safe that if something, if there's an emergency or an incident occurs, that they could feel comfortable with the response? They could feel comfortable with 911?
No. Because to this day, all that happened, I never got a call from an officer. I got the call from the girls. I didn't speak to an officer until
5:30 in the morning.
Not even. Yeah, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning after being in the hospital since 3:40.
And the officer's first words to us is, "Hi, my name is so and so.
What do you know?
What do you know? What do you know happened?"
What?
Yeah.
That I was skeptical from the moment I spoke to those officers about it being an officer's round that took my sister, because in a situation where you have an active shooter and you go to the family of the victim, you should be the person, the suspect with a firearm was taken out. He was spent. So you're gonna go knowing like, hey, this person killed your daughter, but we got him. No, it was.
You immediately felt like they were circling the wagons and covering something up.
Right, what do they know so far, so we could see how we could cover ourselves.
And what we know now, of course, is that as far as the evidence that's been released to date, it's been almost a year, that only police officers fired. So police officers shot and killed 2 people, including Evelyn, who was just in a car.
Yeah.
The car was struck twice. One round towards my sister, the other round in the front. In the front.
And we have Fortini in the hand, and then the I think Norman Lindo was hit twice. So we have at least 5 shots, at least, that we know of, all of which were fired by police officers. And then you have immediately Evelyn and her friends or cousins being treated like suspects rather than victims.
Yes.
Evelyn deprived, apparently, of life-saving medical care and attention. And then the police officers calling you, instead of notifying you about this tragedy, and they are effectively interrogating you. Like this is sort of like compounding the tragedy and the trauma of this for you guys. Jose, I want to give you the last word. You were in town. You guys left Miami-Dade. You live out of the county now. Did this have anything to do with that? And what are you doing back here today? Can you give us an update on the case?
My whole life has been Miami-Dade County. Like, from the moment I was born, my mom came here when she was like 3 years old. She grew up here, Like, the streets that my sister died on, my parents walked up and down those streets all day, every single day of their teenage life and their young adult life, Me and my sister were raised on those streets, raised there, went to school in the area, And my sister, if she wasn't working, she wasn't in school, she would go to the beach, 28 years old, who's not going to go to the club and dance and listen to good music and spend time with your family, to celebrate your birthday. You asked my mom a question. You said, how should parents feel about the safety? If the people with my sister that night, instead of having faith in those that are paid to save lives, instead of having faith in them and just driving themselves to the hospital, my sister probably still be here.
Angelo, I want to give you the last word because I do want to understand the update. I understand you met with the state attorney's office, Catherine Fernandez-Rundle. Where is the case now? What is taking so long? This was last June. This was a very contained scene and situation. I know there's cameras that the city has right there on that block that must have captured the entire incident. Where are we in this? What's happening and what's next?
We're waiting for FDLE to conclude its investigation and finalize its report with its findings. And unfortunately, until that task is completed, we're kind of in a holding pattern. We've enlisted our own efforts to reveal certain facts, kind of conducting an investigation of our own. That's why we're able to get to where we are today, no thanks to law enforcement and their ability to keep the family apprised of what's going on. But obviously, there's an investigation that needs to be protected. You want to protect the sanctity of the investigation, and it's a difficult balancing act. But until FDLE has finished its job and published its findings, we're kind of in a holding pattern.
Where do you think, I made references to negligence and to incompetence. I understand you're still waiting for the facts to all come out. Where do you think the culpability ultimately lies here?
Well, I think this is a multi-dimensional incident, multi-dimensional tragedy. There's several players here. There's several shortcomings and failures, but I think largely it was a catastrophic failure all around. From the incident itself, from the response that came after the incident, and all of these facts warrant a thorough and a complete and thorough investigation. So we're still exploring that. We have a lot of lingering questions, a lot of burning questions that we hope to answer in the near future. But until FDLE has concluded its report and published its findings, that's where we're at.
Angelo Martin, Kristy Garcia, Jose Valdes, thank you for being here. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Me and my sister were raised on those streets, raised there, went to school in the area, And my sister, if she wasn't working, she wasn't in school, she would go to the beach, 28 years old, who's not going to go to the club and dance and listen to good music and spend time with your family, to celebrate your birthday. You asked my mom a question. You said, how should parents feel about the safety? If the people with my sister that night, instead of having faith in those that are paid to save lives, instead of having faith in them and just driving themselves to the hospital, my sister probably still be here.
Angelo, I want to give you the last word because I do want to understand the update. I understand you met with the state attorney's office, Catherine Fernandez-Rundle. Where is the case now? What is taking so long? This was last June. This was a very contained scene and situation. I know there's cameras that the city has right there on that block that must have captured the entire incident. Where are we in this? What's happening and what's next?
We're waiting for FDLE to conclude its investigation and finalize its report with its findings. And unfortunately, until that task is completed, we're kind of in a holding pattern. We've enlisted our own efforts to reveal certain facts, kind of conducting an investigation of our own. That's why we're able to get to where we are today, no thanks to law enforcement and their ability to keep the family apprised of what's going on. But obviously, there's an investigation that needs to be protected. You want to protect the sanctity of the investigation, and it's a difficult balancing act. But until FDLE has finished its job and published its findings, we're kind of in a holding pattern.
Where do you think, I made references to negligence and to incompetence. I understand you're still waiting for the facts to all come out. Where do you think the culpability ultimately lies here?
Well, I think this is a multi-dimensional incident, multi-dimensional tragedy. You know, there's several players here. There's several shortcomings and failures, but I think largely it was a catastrophic failure all around. From the incident itself, from the response that came after the incident, and all of these facts warrant a thorough and a complete and thorough investigation. So we're still exploring that. We have a lot of lingering questions, a lot of burning questions that we hope to answer in the near future. But until FDLE has concluded its report and published its findings, that's where we're at.
Angelo Martin, Kristy Garcia, Jose Valdes, thank you for being here. Good luck to you.
Thank you.